Checkity check check 1 2 1 2. Welcome back, guys, to another. Nah, that don't feel right. Welcome to the first episode. That ain't me. That ain't me. What's going on, y'all? This your boy. That don't feel natural. Greetings, hello, what's up? Something. Welcome. Greetings. Thank you for clicking this video. Stand by. Technical difficulties. So what is this? What am I doing? Vlog slash documentation slash stuff. This first episode will be about poetry breakdown. Hi, my name is Kevin. I write poetry. This channel will be about faith, fitness, fashion, another alliteration word that works with poetry. I don't know. We'll see what the episodes turn into. Anyway, this first episode, I do write poetry, and this is something I would normally do with like close friends. When I'm excited about a poem I write, I would share with them, like, yo, listen to this new poem I wrote. I think it's really good. And I would like recite the poem and then like explain it to them. Like, this is what, friends who like love, because I love like rap and poetry, and the friends that I have who like love thinking about lines in rap music and the meanings behind them and the under meanings and the double meanings and the entendres and all that. So I would find myself with those friends sharing my poetry and then explaining some of the stuff, or just even sharing it for the sake of being like, that's a crazy poem. So this poem that I'm going to share is a poem from a recent era of my life. It's the current era I'm in right now. It's called Where Are You? The title is Where Are You? Background to the poem, it's this commentary, almost as if I'm me standing outside of myself, out of body experience, watching myself, watching my life as an external observer, commenting on the situation. Like if you think of your own life as a movie and you're watching yourself and you're like an audience member, like talking to the character, like what are you doing at that conflict moment of being too stubborn-headed to not go after the girl, or to not go and chase your dreams, or to not run into the impending risk or danger of facing a villain or dangerous creature, the dragon of chaos. That is a archetypal idea in hero stories. So this poem is written from that POV. I'm an audience member of my own life, talking to myself. The way I like to think about it, this is an analogy I give a lot of times. Oftentimes I'll have internal dialogue and it will feel like my 67-year-old self, my 92-year-old self, my 48-year-old self, peeking down the corridors of history, peeking down the tunnels of time to look back at where I'm at now and to like speak to me today and to be like, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be, not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing. We need you to focus. There's a variety of options that of persons you could become down this hallway of history, down this tunnel of time, down this corridor. And if the decisions you make now are affecting which versions of us come into manifestation down the road. So please, we're trying to speak to you and guide you to make the decisions that you need to make now, that maybe are difficult to make, you feel conflict about making, maybe you're procrastinating. But we're trying to speak to you, we're trying to counsel you to make the decisions that would bring forth the versions of us down the corridors of time to help you become the version you want to be at 48, at 67, at 92. So this is almost kind of like that, like, except this is almost just me now outside of self looking at me now. So that's what this poem is, and I'll maybe do breakdown explanation after I recite the poem. The poem is titled, Where Are You? There was a time when life excited you, dreams ignited you, flame retardant residue of ambitions you'd put fire to. You would speak life to death whilst death would death spiral through. Plans you made, hands you gave, on floors to God you were crying through. Where did you lose your way and allow obstacles to tire you? The weight of fog and fatigue for all the leagues you kept diving through. The crash of waves that would laugh and claim your breath and send you flying through torrential seas that would bend your knees, yet somehow you kept smiling through. Demon slayer and evil layer, you once hearkened for darkened nights, spark of fight, berating the gates of hell, looking for archetypes. Archery, your parchment leaf, your actions were of the archer type. You spoke as if sin and missing the mark would cause your heart to blight. Now you walk in the dead of night, howling for the moon to shine. It was cruel to find the roads are washed away and left pools behind. Your moral compass demagnetized and your North Star abused with time. Pinocchio, we pray you find your way and recover from foolish mind. Tron legacy, your father's memory comes knocking on Hollow's Eve. How ironic the author now finds himself where the swallow sings. Then the swell swallowed the vessel you and Ahab took to search for Moby. You arrived at Porch of Geppetto. To your chagrin, the house was dark and lonely. You used to be much muchier. Whatever happened to she we knew as Alice. Calvin lost his tiger. Lions roam when Aslan blew the palace. Peter must learn to crow again, but maybe he lost his happy thoughts while figuring out for every golden princess there's a caveat. So, yeah, that poem is titled Where Are You? And it's like me talking to me, so I'll kind of go line by line, maybe not all the lines. I feel like some of them are self-explanatory, but I'll try to decode what I was feeling, thinking, talking about. So yeah, when I write poetry, and I'll also kind of do like perspective, like internal musings slash thoughts slash correspondence. What's the word I'm looking for? Dialogue, internal dialogue. I'll kind of go through some of the internal dialogue that I go through when writing a poem. This is a poem that I wrote. I am a poet. I think I said that. But that first line, there was a time when life excited you. Full disclosure, I am remedial when it comes to the subject of English, like all throughout grade school and even in college. Terrible at grammar, terrible at writing papers, just terrible at the subject of English in general, which is kind of ironic, because I love poetry and words and putting words together and writing and great literature. Well, I like the idea of great literature. There was an era in my life where I read a lot of books, but I'm not really reading a lot now. But one of the lessons they would teach us in English class when writing a paper is the hook at the beginning of your paper. Like you have the title and the idea, but that first line, they I was taught when first learning how to write a paper, I don't know how old I was, that like one of the most important parts of your paper is how you open the paper. You want to have like this great opening line that kind of hooks your reader in. And oftentimes writing a poem, that is one of my most difficult elements to come up with, the opening line. So I'll struggle a lot. Sometimes I'll have an idea for a poem, like maybe I'll actually have a line come to mind for a poem, and the line is actually appropriate to be somewhere in the body of the poem. So then I try to go back and create the first line, and because I can't create a good first line that feels right or feel in line with what I'm trying to say in the poem, or maybe that one thesis idea that's inspiring an entire poem, because I can't grasp at in the sphere of creativity, in the atmosphere of creativity, I can't reach up and grasp a first line to then build up to this moment of this line that has inspired me, that I want to put later on in the body. Because I can't find that first line, I oftentimes end up not writing the poem altogether. I'll just botch the whole poem. This line, there was a time when life excited you. Sometimes some of my poems happen like this, where it's just pure inspiration. That line kind of just came to me. In this instance, it was the line that sparked the inspiration for the idea of a poem. And these next that whole first rhyme scheme kind of just naturally happened. So there was a time when life excited you. I'm looking at myself saying, you're in a space now where you're dulled and you're uninspired and you don't want to write poetry. You don't find excitement in anything. All the things you love and care about and were impassioned for throughout your adolescence and young adult life no longer enthuse you. You're no longer enthusiastic. As a matter of fact, you're like this zombie type corpse thing walking around, floating through life, unenthused about anything. Particularly the thing which, okay, there's a lot of things in life to not care about, but particularly about the things that for decades you've been enthused about and passionate about. Those things I'm looking at self going, there's a diagnosis I'm going to give. We're worried for, we're concerned for you, because the things that you normally would always, no matter what season of life you're in, difficulty or not difficulty, blessing, harmony, peace, joy, happiness, No matter what area of life you would find yourself in growing up, you would always be enthused about certain things: poetry, creativity, God, good friendship. Like, but now we find you in a space where you're experiencing those things and you're not excited. You're like this corpse, this zombie who can't even feel anything. So I'm speaking to myself, going, "Hey, what's wrong? Like, there was a time when life excited you. Dreams ignite the things you dreamt about in your waking moments. Like, they ignited. If you to even talk about it, it enthused you, it animated you, it brought you to life, it ignited like there was this flame, this tangible thing people could feel about you when they spoke to you and heard you speak about these dreams you have. There was a time when life excited you, dreams ignited you, flame retardant residue of ambitions you'd put fire to. That idea of like, you've now found yourself in a place where you're like this zombie and corpse. And the ambitions you had about life and things you were passionate about have kind of been dwindled down to just residue, like almost like seeds in Death Valley. If you Google this place called Death Valley, it's barren. It's like this wasteland, just dry dirt, nothingness. And one year it got rain, and there was actually dormant seeds all in the soil that once it rained, because the place never got rain, so it was just barren and dead and dry. But once it got rain, all these flowers bloomed up. But they called it Death Valley because nothing ever grew there. This idea of things you were passionate about, you found yourself in a place where your soul is like a death valley. Everything's dead and dry. And the life that once was there, it's dwindled down. It's been reduced down to this residue, like this dust. And even in prior times of your life, when you felt like you were in a death valley, your soul wasn't the death valley, you were in a death valley. The residue of your passions in seasons of difficulty, you could define that residue as flame retardant. And even in those difficult season, Death Valley moments of your life, this residue of your passions and dreams that was, you could describe as flame retardant, you would still try to put fire to it and try to ignite it. Speak to yourself, like you would speak to yourself and go, come on, like snap out of it, like remember who you are and the things you dream about and the things that make you love life and passionate about life. Flame retardant residue of ambitions you'd put fire to. You would speak life to death whilst death spiral through. You would perform CPR on yourself and on your own dreams and passions whilst a difficult season that you would describe as death was death spiraling through who you were to try to take you down. You would speak life to death whilst death spiral through plans you made, hands you gave on floors to God you were crying through. Where did you lose your way and allow obstacles to tire you? Like, how did you get to this place now where you're not in a difficult season? Your soul is the difficult season. How did we get here to a place where obstacles, seemingly insurmountable opponents, obstacles, difficulties, now no longer like produce a fervor in you to overcome, but actually just tire you down and render you helpless and cause you to throw your hands up in defeat and surrender? The weight of fog and fatigue for all the leagues you kept diving through. The crash of waves that would laugh you and claim. So this is again me describing, like, man, when you were younger and you were in a death valley, who you were was the person where the weight of fog and fatigue from all the leagues, like sea, like I guess sea depths, a measurement of sea. The weight of fog and fatigue from all the leagues you kept diving through. The crash of waves that would laugh and claim your breath and send you flying through torrential seas that would bend your knees. Yet somehow you kept smiling through. That younger version of you would face difficulty and you'd be able to smile in the face of adversity. Demon Slayer, anime, Demon Slayer. If you know, then you understand Infinity Castle. But if not, just Google Demon Slayer Infinity Castle premise, ChatGPT. Hey, give me a quick breakdown of what Demon Slayer Infinity Castle means. Demon Slayer, an evil layer, you once hearkened for darkened nights. You used to call out to adversity to try to face obstacles and insurmountable tasks. Demon Slayer, this is who you were. You were a demon slayer with an evil layer, once hearkening for darkened nights. You hearkened for the spark of fight, berating the gates of hell, looking for archetype. You would go to the gates of hell, knocking on them, looking for a fight, looking for archetypes. These, again, Dragon of Chaos. These, not just an opponent, you would look for the opponent, who is the encapsulation of all opponents, like the Joker in the Batman. Like there's these second-rate B-class criminals that Batman fights in the Batman movies, street thugs, and then there's like these moments where an archetype of a criminal, which is all the different kinds of criminals composed into the worst kind of criminal, at its peak, is an archetypal criminal. The Joker is an archetypal criminal. He is, for all intents and purposes, a metaphor of the Dragon of Chaos that a knight would have to slay in a hero's story about saving a princess or saving the town. You once were berating the gates of hell, looking for archetypes. Archery, your parchment leaf. The idea of sin, meaning missing the mark, it was an archery term. Archery, your parchment leaf. The way you wrote, even this thing you were passionate about, poetry, the way you wrote, it was like archery. It was like you would be so committed and dedicated and focused about and motivated about it that you treated poetry with such a love for you that you treated it and focusing on it and disciplining yourself about it and doing it so well that not doing it well felt like sin. Archery, your parchment leaf. Your actions were of the archer type. You spoke as if sin and missing the mark would cause your heart to blight. Now you walk in the dead of night. Now you find yourself in this dead, dry, frozen tundra, death valley, unable to escape. Even the roads that you normally would find in the valley of death, that you would walk alongside God on, those roads have been washed away. Now you walk in the dead of night, howling for the moon to shine. It was cruel to find. The roads are washed away and left pools behind. Your moral compass demagnetized. Think of like Jack Sparrow, Pirates of the Caribbean. He has that compass that shows him what he wants most. Your moral compass demagnetized. It's broken. You don't know even. Not only are there not roads to follow out of this valley that you once knew how to walk alongside God on, the compass, this internal thing about knowing how to get out when roads aren't there, that thing is broken. Your moral compass demagnetized and your North Star got abused with time. Pinocchio, we pray you find your way and recover from foolish mind. Pinocchio, Pleasure Island. Tron Legacy, your father's memory. A lot of background, movie, the idea where Tron Legacy, very similar to the idea of Pinocchio, very similar to the idea of Black Panther, very similar to the idea of Lion King, all these ideas of retrieving the spirit of the father. Tron Legacy, your father's memory, comes knocking on Hollow's Eve. How ironic the author finds himself where the swallow sings. This idea where someone said, I know where the caged bird sings. How ironic that the poet, oh poet, now you find yourself. You might have been someone at one point in time who wrote about what's a good way to put it? Saying you would find yourself in a place writing poetry, reminiscing on sad times, saying I know what sad times are after you'd gotten out of the sad times. How ironic now you find yourself in the sad time unable to escape. How ironic the author, the poet, finds himself where the swallow sings. Then the swells swallow the vessel, you and Ahab. Ahab from the story of Moby Dick. This idea of trying to go chase something insurmountable, but also Moby Dick and Ahab, this idea of Pinocchio has to go find this whale where his father Geppetto is. Whale, Geppetto, father, Moby Dick, whale. But also Tron Legacy, father trapped in this place that I don't know how to go and get him out. The swells swallow the vessel, the boat, the ship you and Ahab took to search for Moby. You arrived at porch of Geppetto. To your chagrin, the house was dark and lonely. It's a scene from Pinocchio. He's sitting on this porch of Geppetto's home, but Geppetto's now gone. He's been swallowed by a whale. To your chagrin, the house was dark and lonely. You used to be much, muchier, is a quote from Alice in Wonderland. You used to be someone entirely different. Back when we knew you when you were younger, you used to be an entirely different person. You had spunk and fervor and fire about you and personality and life, and it seems like something like a dementor of sorts, an apparition, the spirit of sorts has come and withdrawn your soul and your spark and stolen your spark from you. You used to be someone else. You used to be you, and now you're not you. Alice comes to Wonderland as an older person, as a young adult, and Absalom, this figure, this caterpillar, says you used to be much muchier. You used to be you're not yourself. You used to be much muchier. Whatever happened to she we knew is Alice. Calvin and Hobbes. imaginary play friend tiger thing. There was this episode. There's this comic strip called Calvin and Hobbes, and there was this one um, episode. I don't know what you would call it because it's not an episode. It was like a newspaper comic strip. But basically, this boy had this stuffed toy tiger, but the entire comic book was around this boy. He would always imagine the tiger as this imaginary play friend. But in one episode of this comic book, his parents gave him, I think it was like ADHD medicine, Adderall or something, and he basically loses his imagination, and his imaginary tiger, that's this real anthropomorphized tiger, turns back into a stuffed animal. But the animal's kind of talking to him in the moments as it's happening, where he's losing his imagination. And he's like, hey, hey, let's go play. And he's like, no. He's like, hey, well, come on. No, mom and dad gave me this medicine to help me focus on schoolwork. And then one of the next scenes, the imaginary anthropomorphized real life tiger turns it back into a stuffed animal. And at one moment, the stuffed animal like has a little speech bubble come out that says, come on, buddy, snap out of it. And he finally like breaks out of it and realizes, oh, like, yeah, I'm losing my imagination. Okay, let me get back to being a child. You used to be much, muchier. Whatever happened to she we knew as Alice? Calvin lost his tiger. Lions roam when Aslan blew the palace. Peter must learn to crow again. Peter Pan. If you watch the movie Hook, where he's an adult, it's basically the Peter Pan story in reverse, where he has to become a kid again. Calvin lost his tiger. Lions roam when Aslan blew the palace. Peter must learn to crow again, but maybe he lost his happy thoughts. While figuring out for every golden princess, there's a caveat. The caveat is dragons. In every great story where a knight or a hero or someone has to go face a dragon, or where someone is going to look for something valuable, perhaps a princess or perhaps gold. In the story, The Hobbit, the dwarves are going back to the mountain to look for the Arkenstone, but it's also this castle, it's this mountain filled with gold. They're going to look for the valuable thing, the Arkenstone, the gold, but there's a caveat. The thing that you're looking for is being guarded by a dragon. One of the silliest tellings of the story, Shrek, Lord Farquaad wants this princess, caveat, there's a dragon guarding the princess. Peter must learn to crow again, but maybe he lost his happy thoughts. While figuring out for every golden princess, there's a caveat. Caveat's a dragon. Yeah, so that's the poem. It's called Where Are You? The title is, I think kind of self-explanatory, but the idea is like me speaking to me today, stepping outside of myself, looking at me as an audience member in the movie of my own life, calling out from the audience, going, where are you? Like, you used to be much, like, Peter, you must learn to crow, like, Kevin, you have to like find yourself. You're in this place now, behaving in a way that's not going to produce and manifest as the person you want to be later on in your life. You have this dream, this vision of who you want to be in life, and how you're behaving now is like you've kind of surrendered and admitted defeat, and you're just floating through life as this corpse. Where's the Kevin? Where is the kid we knew that was passionate about life, and that would go and that would run into the fray, that would run into chaos, that would run into debris, that would run to the fight, that would run into the destruction, the explosion, the fray, the chaos? Where's that? Where are you? Yeah, so that's the title, that's the poem, that's the breakdown. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Sometimes I'll maybe do poetry readings / breakdowns. Other times I'll just do vlog style stuff. Again, faith, fitness, fashion, something alliteration wise to work with poetry or creativity or expression. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. If you watched all the way to this point, thank you. Listening to me ramble about this poem that I wrote that I really like. And yeah, hopefully in the future, more to come.